Great. I do have, okay.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Oh, this is going to be a fabulous episode with Risa Gaull. Oh, it's been a long day, everybody. I have not had enough caffeine. I'm not going to lie. And actually, we will be talking about the three keys to fulfilling relationships, including relationships with yourself, because self love and self care should be at the top of the priorities. I think Risa would agree with me with that. So
Absolutely. Yeah,
fabulous.
we
Tell
gotta start
us,
there.
yes, like jump right in. Why do you think self love and self care are important, even in or especially with relationships?
Yeah, well, I'll just tell you just how I kind of came to do this was, and why this is going to answer your question. But I was married to a man who struggled with alcoholism and depression, and I just did not realize how much I was depending on him, and until all that happened. It was a really codependent relationship. I didn't know what that word meant at the time, but that's what I learned is that. And it's really your relationships are just really a reflection of your own relationship with yourself. So like I married him. I waited until I was 38 years old to get married because I was aware that I had that tendency. Like I spent my whole life trying to figure out how do I like myself? How do I love myself? I did a ton of work on myself. I'm 38. I want to get married. I want to have kids. I get to that place and I think, well, I guess I'm as ready as I'm going to be. So I find this nice guy, and he kind of checks all the boxes, but he wasn't really that emotionally available because I really still wasn't emotionally available to myself. I didn't know how to give myself that love and that approval, which I think most of us we don't. We're not taught how to do that. It's conditioned out of us from the time we're very young. It's our natural alignment, our state. So what happens when we come into a relationship needing from a place of need, from that place of needing love and approval, which I think that we all kind of, there's a lot of reasons why we do that, but that's what I learned is that I am no longer willing to make my emotional well-being dependent on another person and how they're showing up and the choices they're making. But you know what? No one can do that for you. It's like it's everyone's I think just having a hard enough time trying to make themselves happy and feel centered and grounded and safe in the world. And um, to put that kind of responsibility on another person, it puts a lot of pressure on them, even if they wanted to
Mhm.
try and do that for you. Everyone's human, and we have to do that. That's just an inside job. We have to be able to come to if we want a healthy relationship, it's really being able to come to it from a place of feeling resourced from within.
Mhm. Yeah, I
Does that make
think,
sense?
yeah, it does. And we all come to the realization of codependence differently. And
Mhm.
everyone's realization is beautiful and authentic. Mine involved ice cream. Um,
Mhm.
I was an incredibly like insecure and introverted, socially anxiety human, and I never did anything alone. I couldn't, to the point where like people had to like drive with me to places. I never did anything alone. And there was an ice cream sampling, and I made three backup plans. I was going to go because I needed a friend to go with me, and everyone canceled. And I realized I'm like, my entire life is dependent on someone else's schedule.
Mm.
Oh, that, like, it was a shocker. And then I went to the ice cream social alone with my phone up to my face the whole time because I was like terrified. But I did it. And then ever since then, I now do things in a much more from an empowered state, as
Mhm.
opposed to like, oh, I can only do this if someone else blank, Like that
Mhm.
is, I feel like we don't realize how much of ourselves we give up with codependence. Like
Mhm.
it's a chunk. It's a big chunk.
Mhm. Yeah. And you know what? It's not to like be judgmental. If you're listening to this right now and you're feeling like, oh crap, I'm like being needy or whatever, it's like we all have our stuff. There's good reasons why um, we develop these patterns or these limiting beliefs as kids, and it's really not your fault. It's really, part of it's cultural, like we're sort of taught two halves make a whole and blah blah blah. Well, they don't really. That makes a codependent relationship. I call it normalized codependency. So there's that whole thing that's running, and then there's as women, we're sort of taught to put everyone else's needs before our own, and we're sort of wired to be caretakers, and we may well have responsibilities to do that, but that's another way that sort of what I would consider codependent patterns show up, is when we're putting ourselves really sacrificing ourselves for the sake of others, which I don't believe serves anybody in the long run. And I forgot where I was going with that, but oh yeah, so why we have these patterns. So it's really not your fault, because it's just as kids strategies. They're sort of like survival strategies that we develop as little kids. We're very intuitive, we're very resourceful, and we'll do whatever we need to do to make sure that our needs are getting met by the adults who are there taking care of us. So there's strategies. Oh, we learn, I better not rock the boat. I don't want to make mommy unhappy. I want that love. I want that approval, or I want to be loved, be the love that I am. And so the problem is that, we create we get these patterns ingrained in us, and they're just not serving us anymore as adults.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really where we get the opportunity to look at, if you're not happy in your relationship right now, then I guarantee that there's some opportunity for growth there.
Yeah, and it's the
So, right.
authenticity of it. Like, you said things that honestly reminded me. Okay, so everyone who's listening knows I do not feel guilty about anything. All my followers know this. I have one guilty pleasure though. I watch reality TV. It is trash. It is empty calories. I love it. And so Love is Blind is a reality show. And literally what you're explaining is like one of a season just dropped. By the way, everyone, we're at the beginning of March, a season just dropped. But when we're recording this, and she presented herself as the most easygoing, fun-loving, oh my gosh, flexible person. And then she got what she wanted, which was love. Love is Blind. It's all about relationships and love, right? But that wasn't who she was. So like, she did it because that's what she was conditioned to do, to get love, but that's not actually who she was. So then everyone was miserable by the end. And I am just sitting here like, yeah, it's unfortunate, and it plays out on camera. It's real. It's real, and it's prevalent for a lot of people, that the way they grow up and how they shift themselves subtly or extremely to fit in. It's like, this is what I have to do to be loved. Make sure I have no drama, make sure I have no needs, make sure, and all of a sudden you're not yourself, and you're miserable, and everyone is miserable around you because you can't advocate your own needs. I think that's a big part of loving yourself, is knowing what you need from yourself, but then also from other people. I'm a big believer in managing expectations. I walk into everything, and I'm like, I'm a feral house cat. Feed me, hug me when I want to be hugged, and give me attention at specific times, and I'm great. Nothing else, though. Nothing else. And like, when I set those expectations, like, oh, it's so much better. And then people get to set expectations with me. And it's like, yes, why do we, that's a question for you. Why do we make it harder on ourselves by trying to, why? Just why?
Yeah, I think that, it's really like, this is really the bottom line, Lily, is that I think, we're just looking for love. We're looking for love and approval from other people, because we haven't learned how to give it to ourselves. It's been conditioned out of us. That is our natural state. And so, if we're making it hard, it's just we're in a pattern of some sort that's running. That's, all the stuff that we were taught. Well, you have to look a certain way, or you have to behave a certain way in order to get love or approval. That's like that whole perfectionism thing that maybe I was rewarded for how I performed, or my caregivers had expectations for me. So that's just how I have all of these, like I've done all of these. And so it's just, I think the solution is to, if we can just pay attention to how we feel, because whenever you're feeling any dissatisfaction, any negative emotion, that's a cue that you're somewhere out of alignment with yourself and the truth of who you are.
Mhm.
So yeah, that's all the work that I do with people, is then everything that I've learned over my life and my training now as a transformational life coach is like, how do we love ourselves? And I love what you're saying about just even self-care. Like, what does that even mean? It's, just even looking at it, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, it's, just even basic needs, like physical needs. Am I, doing what I need to do to just take care of my body? Am I getting enough sleep? Am I eating? Basic things. And then emotionally, what am I doing to, do I have something I can do for at least a few minutes a day just to calm my mind and get centered? Like, I love to go outside and just be in nature, and I'm fortunate to live in a beautiful place where I can walk. There's a lake nearby. And so that's sort of my way to connect. But that, that brings me to, I think, like the real key, we're talking about your relationship with yourself and self-love, but I, like, from my understanding, and I'm very spiritual, and wherever you're at on your spiritual journey is fine. There's no judgment about that at all. But it's, for me, cultivating that connection with a higher power, whatever you want to call it, that divine connection, to me, is really what allows me to feel resourced from within. I always say, like, your partner's not your source. You know, other people are not your source. Yes, we need people. We're social creatures
Mhm.
looking for healthy, interdependent relationships. We all need each other. And we need to be able to, lift each other up. And sometimes I might be in a more needy place than others, but in general, I want to feel like I am okay with me. I don't need you to show up in a certain way in order, I'm not looking for that approval, that validation from you. And this is the ideal, this is what I've been working on my whole life. And that's not to say that I don't catch myself still like kind of wanting that, but then that's just my opportunity to bring my focus back on myself. And I mean, there's a lot of tools that, I've learned that I use, but we just, if we can meet ourselves with a little compassion and be able to just sort of hold ourselves gently through whatever we're experiencing, just honor how we feel. I mean, we could talk about days for like all of these things, but just how do we care for ourselves physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually? And that's the ideal, is to come together for a healthy relationship, for two whole people to come together. It's not two halves making a whole, right? Two wholes, and where you overlap, that's your relationship. It's like one of those Venn diagrams. Is
Yep.
that what you call it?
Yep.
Two circles overlapping. In the middle is your relationship. So ideally, two whole people, knowing your partner's not your source is your source, and whatever that means to you, and cultivating that connection first so that you can show up feeling whole in yourself. And also just know, like, for me, I those times where I may be caught up in those conditioned patterns of thinking, the negative self-talk, the limiting beliefs, like that's, first of all, that's not the truth of who you are. You're not your story. I call it, that's your story. It's like just what you've learned, how you've learned to think about yourself. It's not the truth of who you are. It's not the essence of who you are. And that lives from here to here. And so, when we can come back to that essence, cultivate that divine relationship. So if there are times where I'm getting caught up in whatever mishigas, whatever craziness is going on in my brain, then I can just pray and know that, what, even if I'm having a hard time loving myself right now in this moment, I know that I'm lovable. There's a higher power that I can connect with that loves me no matter what. unconditionally, right? We want to bring unconditional love to our relationships. So where does that come from? We have a connection with some way that we feel like we're being unconditionally loved. So we have that to bring. It's just, I think it's who we are, like being the
Yeah.
love that you are.
And I think that's, you bring up a good point. The unconditional love can and should, not to use a bad word like should, but can and should come from self and
Mhm.
source, not
Mhm.
from anything else. And that you can love yourself unconditionally. Like it's something that we're capable of. We're taught not to. That it's like,
Mhm.
only love yourself if you're a certain size. You love that societal one. Only love yourself if, I don't like the one that's like, oh, you can only love yourself if you're in a relationship. I'm like,
Mhm.
ooh, no, you can love yourself anytime you want. And
Mhm.
I agree with you. The you complete me thing
Mhm.
is only acceptable in a rom-com. Only. It
Yeah.
does not belong in the real world at all. Every time someone has said to me like, don't you want someone to complete you? My answer is always the same. I'm a whole ass soul. Whole ass soul. Like, this is already complete. I want someone who compliments me, who compliments my life, that we can live harmoniously together, growing and supporting each other into flourishing awesomeness. It's not, there is no magic person who's going to make your life. And then everything fell into place. And I never had to love myself again because now I had love from somebody else.
Mhm.
What? That is not the way it goes. Love yourself. You're fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, that's I love how you're describing that. And if we could derive self-love from other people, then we'd all be really loving ourselves, because that's most of us where we're trying to get it from. I know, because I did it for a lot of years. And that's what I learned, is like nobody can do that. Nobody can do that for you. I was contemplating that word, self-esteem, after I had gotten divorced, and I was like, oh, self-esteem. That's why they call it self-esteem, because you can only get it from yourself. Ding,
Mm-hmm.
like that moment. But it's like, even if somebody was showing up and just showering you with all their love and attention, they're human beings. They're not always going to be able to focus their energy on you, and that's not their job. It's our own responsibility to take care of ourselves, to cultivate that connection with whatever makes you feel in good, right, loving relationship with yourself. And I know it's not that easy. That's all the coaching work that I do and that I've been learning my entire life. But
Yeah.
trying to give you some tips here, like if you're if you're struggling, like how do I love myself? So then that's a good place to start, is just self-care. What do I need to do to take care of myself today? That's a good bottom line go-to question.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe, like, what's one non-negotiable for me? Like, all right, I need at least 5 minutes in the morning before anybody talks to me, where I can just be quiet and connect up with my higher power and get centered for the day. And I know if I don't do that, my day's going to be very different. So like, that's a non-negotiable. Or even just getting out for my walks, or
Yeah.
so like, what's one thing? It doesn't have to take a long time either.
Mm-hmm.
We all need something, right?
Yeah. And it can be with you or your partner. I had a partner a while back, and we had an agreement. We are not human until an hour after we wake up. So we
Mhm.
don't, there is no, oh, how'd you say? No, there's none of that. For the first 60 minutes of us being awake, we are completely separate. We are not, because that was the thing. I'm like, I'm a hobgoblin. Like, leave me alone. I have not morphed into my human form yet. And they were like, I am an angry human being who hates life for the first 60 minutes. I need to wake up, have coffee, remember that humanity is worth saving, and then go about my day. And I'm like, yeah, and I need to turn back into a human. So, but it was, that was a non-negotiable for both of us. And it was like, it's weird because it was for us individually, but we synced
Mhm.
with it so much that we're like, it's 60 minutes, move. And it worked great. And neither of us, I think with your non-negotiables, never compromise. Never compromise. It's a non-negotiable for a reason. So with all of your experience with this lived experience, which I think is where some of the best lessons come from, is
Mhm.
from an expert and a coach who's had been through it. You can read all the books you want, but only living it makes you feel it. With that, are you taking new clients right now? Are people able to contact you and work with you at this time?
Yes, I am. I am taking new clients, and I actually do have I have a gift. I have a free gift for anybody. If you're in a relationship and you're struggling with that question of whether to stay or go, or you just want to see if if you've got any patterns running, just even about like your relationship with yourself, then we'll put a link into the show notes for the quiz. You can grab that, and it'll just kind of start to raise your awareness about maybe if there are any kind of unhealthy patterns that are that you are running that you have. And then there is actually a link to my calendar in that
Mhm.
quiz for anybody that is curious about what it might look like to do some private work together.
Yeah, anyone who's ready to start exploring self-love and, dare I say, balance, it
Mhm.
might it might behoove them to contact you. I love that. Thank you so much for joining me, for taking time today to do this in this crazy hectic world, to carve out some time to discuss self-love and self-care that we do,
Mhm.
like you and I do on the daily, and to
Mhm.
show people that it can help. It can help. So, thank you so much, and to all the followers and listeners, remember to follow and subscribe if you enjoyed this and want to see more. Like if you found anything interesting or entertaining that we talked about today. And if you have any questions, of course, comment. We are here to help. We are here to make your life better. We are here to support you in any way so that you can love yourself fully. Join us. We're here and we are enthusiastic about making people love themselves exactly as they are. So once again, thank you so much for joining. This was great.
Thanks so much, Lily.